Tensions rising in the Middle East as Israel launches a ground operation in the southern Gaza city of Rafah. The IDF now taking control of the critical Rafah crossing and carrying out airstrikes.
Now, the capture happening 7 months after the deadly attacks that ignited Israel's war against Hamas. And joining us now from Tel Aviv is our friend, foreign correspondent Marcus Moore. Marcus, always good to see you. And we'll start with this. So, what's the latest on the military operation there, and what's the end goal for the Israeli offensive?
DeMarco, this operation got underway overnight, and it included airstrikes, tanks, and soldiers on the ground. They took control of the Rafah crossing, as you just mentioned, which is a key route for aid going into Gaza. And we saw a remarkable image this morning. Israeli flags now flying on the Palestinian side of the border. The IDF, though, emphasizing that this operation is precise and it's also limited. So it's not a widespread operation on the entire city. And of course, it's coming in the midst of increased international pressure from governments and also aid groups that have been imploring Israel to ensure that innocent civilians are protected. Now, this operation no doubt affects the much-needed influx of aid going into Gaza. And today, some are suggesting that the Rafah operation may also be a tool to put pressure on Hamas during those critical hostage negotiations that continue this morning.
Let's talk about that humanitarian issue. Thousands of Palestinians who are in Rafah, they have nowhere to go. What does all of this mean for the humanitarian crisis that we've been hearing about?
Well, Eva, it's still unfolding in a very real way. We do know that Israel, less than 24 hours before the ground operation started, they did drop flyers in eastern Rafah urging people to evacuate to an expanded humanitarian zone. And they also told aid groups to move away from that area as well. Now, this is a part of an effort on the part of Israeli officials as well to facilitate the work to set up field hospitals and tents and also to repair a water supply to part of that area. But Eva, there's so much concern about the innocent families that have been caught in the middle of this, many of them who went to Rafah because of the fighting in the central part of Gaza into the north. And now many of them are having to move all over again.
And speaking of concern, how does this impact ceasefire talks and also hostage negotiations?
Yeah, well, DeMarco, it's important to point out at this point that the negotiations are continuing, and even with the Rafah operation that is underway. But there is some concern that perhaps this could have an impact on the negotiations, which, by the way, just to give you some background on what Hamas has agreed to, they have agreed to a deal that includes 3 phases. The first one starting with a 6-week ceasefire, and then the release of Palestinian prisoners in exchange for 33 hostages. But this morning, the exact details, how many hostages and when and where, that's where some distance is between all the sides. And Hamas is also asking for the IDF to pull its troops back towards the Gaza border, allowing displaced Palestinians to travel freely from south to north. And just some of the other major sticking points are really about the end of this war. Hamas has been calling for a permanent end to Israel's bombardment. That is something that Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has said they will not agree to. So there's been a lot of back and forth on this. And Israel has said that the counter proposal from Hamas does not meet Israel's core demands.
Again, the world is watching, Marcus. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Foreign correspondent Marcus Moore for that report.